was a man named Anthony Johnson. He was one of those original slaves that had been dropped off, and he started sponsoring indentures of people to come to America. He would sponsor them, and I'll pay your way, and you work for me 7 years, and at the end of time, you'll be free, and you'll get a piece of land just like I did. And he's doing that, and in 1653, one of the guys he indentured was a guy named John Kaser. John Kaser.
You guys, on my last video, many people commented that the very first legal slave owner in America was a Black person. And I was like, I have seen this comment enough that I will look it up myself. I'm sure that this is completely untrue, but let's see where they're getting this from, where they can feel like they can say such a thing. You guys, I have breaking news from the year 1621. I feel like an idiot. If you already knew this, leave me alone. I'm doing my best. But apparently, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm literally shook. Anthony Johnson was a slave brought over from Africa. Okay, so what I did know that many people don't know is that Black people were not just, or Africans were not just stolen by Europeans and shipped over to America. They were sold by other Africans. I did know that. A lot of people don't know that, so this was not news to me. But he was sold and he was brought over as an indentured servant, and he was freed because he served his time. An indentured servant serves for a period of time to pay off a debt or to earn their freedom, and then they get to be free. And that was the model that was meant for the Africans in America. Hang with me because this gets crazy. He was an indentured servant himself. He earned his own freedom. He bought land, and then he owned slaves. He was the first, I'm going to get there. Okay. He owned slaves, Black and white slaves on his tobacco farm. Are you kidding me? He owned white people. Okay. So he.
I don't know why that just breaks me down right there. He owns white people. This is Naisha Lorraine. She's on Instagram. Her link will be in the descriptions below, gang.
He owns white people. And then there's this guy named John Kaser. John Kaser earns his freedom through indentured servitude because that's the model. And Anthony's like, no, actually, you're my slave for life. I know that nobody's ever heard of this, and this is not the typical model, but you will actually not be earning your freedom, and you will be my slave for life. So he goes to court, and he pleads his case, and he's like, you guys get back to me with a ruling on whether or not I can keep John forever, because I don't really want him to be let go. There are other reasons. There was a neighbor, whatever. It doesn't matter. He's like, he's going to be my slave for life. And the court rules in Anthony's favor. And it's like, we love this for you. Keep him forever. So Anthony Johnson is the first legal slave owner. It's the first legal acknowledgement in English America that an African could be held as a slave for life. And he was owned by a Black man who owned other slaves who were both Black and white.
Hi guys, welcome back to Kingdom Politico. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Now, I'm sharing this young man's video. LFR family. Shout out to LFR. Shout out to Van. I just had to comment on this, and I like this video. I said, let me just do an addition to this, because I just did a genealogical search on ancestry.com. You know, I wanted to look up my lineage, where my grandparents came from. I found that I have some Greek in my family. We come from the Mandinka tribe. It's something that my aunt looked up. So I said, well, let me look for myself. I got a free trial, you know, went on there, started looking up some things. So about 6 generations back, my great-great-great-great-grandmother was on a census. I located her on a census. And in this census, she was listed as a slave, Black woman slave. And then there were 7 other Black boy slave, Black girl, Black man, husky. You know, they had descriptions of the slave because they really didn't consider them to be people at that point. They were property. But guess what, y'all? The 8 of them were black. Guess what color the other 5 were? Yeah, white. So they were listed as white boy, about 8 years old, white girl, white woman, um, and white man, husky. And there was another description, but that kind of blew me back. And I'm like, it's in the census. Why hasn't history talked about this? And then I did a video on TikTok just talking about reparations, and so many people commented. There were people that claimed that their ancestors were enslaved. And I found out that the first people that were enslaved were Native Americans, because the Native Americans were the Indians. They were native to the land. So when they conquered other tribes, they enslaved each other. But then when the Irish started coming over, they enslaved the Irish. Then the Chinese came over. They enslaved the Chinese. And then the Africans came over. And you'll hear the story when I play the rest of it from this indentured servant. And because the Africans worked, they felt that they weren't as, what did they say about the Chinese? That they were small in stature and small and back. They weren't as rugged, is what they called them. So they preferred the African to keep as slaves. But let's continue to hear this. But make sure you like and subscribe to Kingdom Politico, and also check out my friend here, okay, on LFR Family. All right, here we go.
And when they were writing our history books, they were like, we don't need to talk about that. Are you joking? I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but this changes everything.
You're not being dramatic, and it does change everything. This is what she's talking about. The first slave owner in America was not only a black man. He went to court and demanded it because one of his workers that he was trying to look out for, he was trying to hook you up, brother. You was being lazy and you did not hold your end of the bargain. In 1954, it was time for Anthony to release John Kaser, a black indentured servant. Instead, Anthony told Kaser he was extending his time. Kaser left and became employed by the free white man, Robert Parker. Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Northampton court in 1954. In 1955, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold John Kaser indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanction for blacks to own a slave of their own race. Thus, Kaser became the first permanent slave and Johnson the first slave owner. Guys, this blows my mind too. This blows my mind too. And there's a whole lot of people out there that don't want this to go forward, but it is what it is. We got some more information on this. Check this out.
19 was a man named Anthony Johnson. He was one of those original slaves that had been dropped off, and he started sponsoring indentures of people to come to America. He would sponsor them, and I'll pay your way, and you work for me 7 years, and at the end of time, you'll be free, and you'll get a piece of land just like I did. And he's doing that, and in 1653, one of the guys he indentured was a guy named John Kaser. John Kaser had come, and he was not a very good worker. As a matter of fact, Anthony Johnson said, "You are such a lazy bum, you'll have to work for me for the rest of your life to pay off what I've invested in your indenture." So he went to court in Virginia, and in 1653, he said, "Can I own this guy for the rest of his life? Because he'll never pay off. He's so lazy, he'll never pay off what I put in." The court said, "Yes, you can own him." That's the first occasion of slavery in American history. And it was when a black sued to own another black. And that didn't come out in the 1619 Project. That's where slavery begins in America.
Now, this is what blows my mind right here. So I thought that we were like, not only were we not slave owners, but I didn't think we owned anything. I didn't even think we owned the shoes on our feet, the clothes on our backs, anything. We didn't even own our own children. Other people did. That's what I thought. If you look at the history books and how they try to get it along, but check this out right here. Black slave owners by state. 43% of the slave owners in South Carolina were black. 40% of slave owners in Louisiana were black. 26% in Mississippi, black. 25% in Alabama, black. 20%. Come on, gang. Really?
on that.
If you
What's
think it might rain,
crazy to me about this whole thing is not only that this kind of history hasn't been in the books, it's not something that we've been taught, but all throughout the time that I've been in school, you know, I grew up in the 60s, the civil rights era, Martin Luther King, you know, blacks being deprived, blacks can't have this, blacks can't have that. And all the while I'm hearing this kind of stuff. Now, I grew up in a middle class family. If some of you have seen my previous video, my grandfather was a well-to-do person. So you know, my family on my father's side, they're like doctors, anesthesiologists, they're lawyers, they're judges. So to hear that blacks couldn't do anything, that wasn't the message that I got, right? But listening to this and finding out, number one, that this man actually went to the court and said, I want to own another human being indefinitely. And the judge goes, okay, you got him. It's just bonkers to me, right? But it makes you wonder, what is the agenda here? What was the agenda of these historians of America at that time, wanting to keep this kind of stuff out of the textbooks? I don't know. You guys let me know. Tell me why they've pushed this so much. Was it just for division's sake? And in the case of reparations, if everyone at one time or another has been enslaved, then how do you account for reparations? How does that work? Who gets what? Let me know in the comments, okay? And make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.